Hello, welcome to our YouTube channel. This is our first video in the series of spotting a vulnerability in the source code. So if you wanna be on track of our videos, please click on subscribe button and click on the bell button to get the notifications. To see the vulnerability in action, we have a simple application here that's based on the vulnerable code. And if you enter the wrong username and password, it will show an error message. But if you enter the correct username, or if you could be able to exploit the vulnerability, it is going to show you a flag that proves you have exploited the application and you have access to the admin page. To understand the vulnerability, we need to first review the code and see what's going on in the application. This is the DB file, and we only have one table. It's called users, and it has just one record in it, the user admin, and its MD5 hashed password. You can see the password in the comments. Next, we have the index.html file. We don't have anything interesting here. It's just a form that posts the data into the login.php. Then we have the login.php file, and the first line is calling the config.php, which contains the flag and the username, passwords, and URLs of the database and the DDP connector that we are using in the main authentication process. The next line in the login.php is an if condition that checks if the username and the password is set. If they are set, they are going to copy them into two variables called username and password. The DB query line is very interesting here because we are building an SQL command by using the username variable, but we don't have any restriction on it. So potentially there is SQL injection vulnerability here, but let's see what's going on in the rest of the code. The next couple of lines executes the query on the database and saves the MD5 hash of the password in the DB password variable. Then the password that user has entered will be converted to MD5 and will be compared to the DB password that already fetched from the database, and if they are identical, the application will show us the flag. Since the only exploitation point in this application is the database query, so in this part we are trying to manipulate the request and exploit the vulnerability. We are going to use this Visual Studio Code text file as a blackboard. First, suppose MD5 of 111 is the text you are seeing in the blackboard. The database has just one table and its data is what you can see in the text file. We have the DB query that username parameter of HTTP request is replaces the string in it, and we can build an SQL command by manipulating the username parameter. This looks like a simple SQL injection vulnerability, so let's see how we can exploit. The first solution you may wonder is using true or false requests to manipulate the query, but it cannot manipulate the password, so you should know the real password to exploit this vulnerability, because the password field has no effect on the SQL query. We need to manipulate the database to return a known MD5 hashed string. We can do such an action using union select. To return a MD5 hash that we already know the clear text of it. For example, MD5 of 111. Now we know what we should input as a password. It's just 111. Now we can use these strings as input in the application and see what happens. There is a similar solution for this challenge and it is using the MD5 function of MySQL. MySQL has a built-in function that converts strings to the MD5 and we can use that in the union select form to convert desired string into the MD5 form. So in this solution, the only point is the password string and the MD5 function input string should be identical. That can solve the problem and we can exploit the program and see the final flag.